While it would appear that the cap cities are gathering pace, Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic will join me in just a moment with all the numbers for the week ahead. Back in just a minute.
With the evolution of social media, marketing of property is no longer linear. Consumers are influenced differently. The Property Show is unique in that it empowers agents to connect with buyers and sellers through personalised content, social media and artificial intelligence. The Property Show delivers personalised, laser-focused marketing by combining new media, social media and audience targeting, and gives the agent a digital voice. See how well the Property Show works, and then let's get started telling the world about your property. See it now exclusively at realty.com.au.
Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic. Good morning, Kevin. How are you? Or should I say good afternoon? How are you?
I'm really well, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, by how quickly the days go. Well, gee, things are picking up, Kevin, since the market seems to be settling down, gathering a little bit more confidence from consumers, certainly putting more properties on the market. Let's firstly bring up the auction clearance rates, or the final results from last week, before we look ahead. Let's walk through those, Kevin. Sydney, 63.7%.
Yeah, look, I mean, Sydney and Melbourne both down a little bit on the preliminary, as we normally expect, but both fairly solid results. Sydney in the lead there at 63.7, Melbourne a fraction behind at 56.3. But I think we're now reaching a stage where those clearance rates are actually sort of representative of the confidence in the market. There's been so much disruption with restrictions and such like it. It now looks as if they're sort of settling into to a level that sort of reflects that confidence.
That weighted national average coming in just a touch under 60%, 59.3. Yeah, pretty good results overall, and we talk again about Canberra, leading the pack at just over 70%. Good result, off a smaller number of auctions admittedly, but still it does actually tell a story, Kevin, doesn't it?
Oh, look, it does. It's not just this week's result at 70%. It's the fact that Canberra has actually returned some fairly resilient results right the way through the coronavirus situation, which impacted other capital cities much more significantly.
We are seeing a number of reports out, and Kevin will join me all next week as we look at a number of key factors that are indicating, what is happening with the market, and he'll do that next week in our sister program, Real Estate Uncut, which you're welcome to have a look at and watch it each day next week. Kevin, it just does seem to me that confidence is growing amongst consumers, especially as we see these listings grow. What's your thought about buyer activity? Because it's been very pent up, hasn't it, with a limited amount of stock?
Yeah, look, the restrictions came into play, and all market participants were affected, and we saw a suspension of activity on both sides, vendors and purchasers. Once those restrictions were lifted, we saw purchasers returning more quickly than vendors. It's probably a more straightforward decision if you've already got your finance approved prior to coronavirus. And we are seeing them come back, but now we're starting to see vendors taking the plunge. Interesting to note, Melbourne actually has more auctions than Sydney for the first time since coronaviruses were lifted. And both capital cities, the major markets, returning over 500. Probably a little bit more muted response in other capital cities, but they're the main auction markets.
Well, let's bring those numbers up for you now. As Kevin said, both Sydney and Melbourne over 500. Melbourne slightly ahead of Sydney at 542. Brisbane, a good number at 69. That's up a little bit, I think. That's up on last week?
Yeah, look, it is up a fraction, but if you have a look at Adelaide, Perth and Canberra, you'll see that's relatively steady by comparison. So I haven't seen that take off just yet.
Okay, so just a summary for you. The auction numbers ahead: Sydney 532, Melbourne 542, Brisbane 69, Adelaide 36, Perth 12 and Canberra 34. And we'll just take another look at our final auction clearance rates from last week. Quickly running through those: Sydney 63.7, Melbourne 56.3, Brisbane 44.9, Adelaide 57.1, and Canberra 70%, giving us a weighted national average of 59.3%. Kevin, we'll regather after the weekend and have a talk on Monday about the final results. What are you tipping?
Oh, look, I think we've seen a stabilisation of those clearance rates. Obviously, one of the things we saw in a coronavirus-affected market was a lot of withdrawals, a change in activity with sold prior, and those measures have all sort of settled down to more of a sort of equilibrium position. So I would expect we'll still see some moderately firm results coming out of the capital city markets, particularly Sydney and Melbourne, and Canberra's got to be a favourite for the highest clearance rate for next week.
Good. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. Kevin Brogan, thank you very much. We'll join you again on Monday and we'll have a look at the first rush of results that come to us from CoreLogic. And we join you every Monday and every Friday with Auction Update. Don't forget, Real Estate Talk is out tomorrow, so watch out for that as well. Kevin, thank you. Have a nice weekend. Talk to you on Monday.
Thanks very much. Speak to you then, Kevin.